We're firmly into November. The Halloween candy's been passed out. The kids have passed out from eating too much of it. And now we are in November, looking on to the future at all the promising films to come. But we first must take a look back, rewind time, and go over the 9 films I watched in October. And I gotta tell you, it was a very, very rough month. Just to give you an indicator of how bad the month was, I ranked them worst to best. Even my top couple spots go to movies that are just good. Nothing is world-shattering stuff here. And so, with this intro out of the way, I give you my ranking of the top 9 movies I watched in October. Say, before I take a quick trip down memory lane, if you wouldn't mind tripping over the subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, I would appreciate it. All right, on with the list. Number 9. Oh, my beautiful Jennifer Lopez. What fresh hell have you brought to my doorstep this time? Lopez and I have had a pretty rough go at it as of late. I covered the last few movies she dropped straight on streaming, starting with the critically acclaimed, in her mind and no one else's, This Is Me, ... now. And then I followed that review up with the greatest love story never told. It was ass. And then she was in that sci-fi movie that went straight to Netflix that I forgot the title of and I do not care to look up. It was also bad. But now the queen is back on the big screen where she belongs. And she's doing a musical based on a novel and a remake of a 1985 classic that won several awards called The Kiss of the Spider-Woman. It would appear that our Jenny from the block has spied another man that she wants to put on her mantle. This one she's not gonna marry though. And this one is encased in gold. I'm talking about an Oscar, baby. The film is rated R. There's swearing, there's applied sexual abuse, and there's torture. And that's just coming from the people watching this movie. The movie contains all those things too though. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the source material and you thought this was a sequel to Madam Web, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Not only is this not part of the Sony Cinematic Spider-Man universe that doesn't have Spider-Man in it, its main storyline is also not even about Jennifer Lopez at all. While J-Lo is certainly in the film and she's gonna be singing, she's gonna be dancing, after all, Miss This is Francine, she is not the main protagonist here. We're gonna be focused instead on Valentine and Luis. These two knuckleheads have found themselves in quite the predicament, being thrust into an Argentinian jail in the 80s. Valentine is part of a resistance group that has a lot of information the government wants their grubby hands on. So they decide, in their infinite wisdom, to put a mole inside the cell with our Valentine, and that's gonna be Luis Molina. Instead of trying to grease the wheels and become friends with Valentine, eventually pumping him for information, he's gonna be pumping him with something else. But before we get to that point, Luis wants to get to know Valentine, see what makes him tick, and ultimately it could be his chance to get out of prison. Because Valentine was thrown in for being part of the resistance, Luis was thrown in simply for being gay. And if he wants to see his freedom again, he needs to figure out some intel to give back to the warden. Now, because they're in this small, confined space, there's just not a lot to talk about. Especially for Valentine, who likes to read his books, he likes to work on his memoirs, and he just doesn't have a lot to say. Luis has a lot to say, and so he's gonna regale both Valentine and us, the audience, with a story. A story that's gonna take shape in the form of a one-man show. You see, our Molina absolutely adores the actress Aurora, played by Jennifer Lopez. And his favorite movie from her is The Kiss of the Spider-Woman. Valentine is unfamiliar with the musical. Don't worry, Luis knows it by heart. And so we're gonna follow 2 different storylines that have a lot in common, believe it or not, and they might end up tucking together in one neat package. Or at least, that's the idea. I think my least favorite way to do a story is when one person tells another person about an event, and we keep jumping back and forth between these 2 different storylines. The main character being bullish and doesn't want to hear the tale, but then as it starts to unfold, he can't get enough of it. Tell me more, please tell me more. And every time we jump into the fantasy world, the director really wants to show that juxtaposition between the grimy, dirty, real world in the prison and this beautiful, fanciful, colorful world that Jennifer Lopez gets to play in. Jennifer can be described in this film as having Barbie face. She is completely plasticified, nothing on her moves at all. She is completely plasticified, nothing on her moves at this point. Her hair is beautiful, lush, and blonde. She looks bizarre, almost alien-like in this film. But the woman can sing and the woman can move those hips, damn it. And she's gonna be twirling her heart out. Half the choreography in this movie is twirls. This happens around, I don't know, like halfway through. There's a moment in the film where our prisoners are poisoned. And one of them is shitting himself. So the other tucks down behind, and our Peter Rabbit here is gonna hop all the way into that rabbit hole and see what the mess is about. This is a disgusting scene to watch unfold. And as Louise was pulling down the not-so-tighty-whities now filled with human excrement while plugging his nose so he doesn't gag, all I was thinking was, yeah, this is it. This is cinema. And now it's unfortunately the only way I can achieve climax. When we're not treated to shit-stained drawers, we're whisked away back with Aurora as she's doing a Hello Dolly singing in the rain nod to all the classics. J-Lo plays double duty in this film. Duty, I suppose that's appropriate. Not only is she Aurora, but she's also the evil Spider-Woman. There's an actual Spider-Woman in this movie, folks. But it's a metaphor, though. The whole play is essentially a metaphor. The Spider-Woman with her long fingers and her flattened, stupid haircut kind of comes and goes later in the movie, out of nowhere, really. The play takes a turn where it's kind of this, oh, there's a bad guy and there's another love interest sort of a situation, to suddenly there is an evil spider lady who can kiss you to death. And every 10 years, she requires another sacrifice. This is straight out of some Disney shit. Except for the Disney shit has some good, catchy music. I didn't find one song that I could tap my feet to here, unfortunately. Everything's lit well, it's colorful, the choreography's fine, but I was not feeling any of the songs here. I think what doesn't help matters is I don't care about any of the characters in the musical world. Now, in the prison cell, the two lead characters are solid. I think actor Tonatiuh, I'm sure I mispronounced that, I apologize. I thought he did a very fine job with his role. Every character kind of has two different versions of themselves. They have the one in the prison, then they have the stage performance. And he, over anyone else, really showcases the talent and the different styles of acting he can do. The performance is unfortunately not enough to salvage this slow, boring affair. Anytime I'm back in the musical world, I check out completely. And the prison cell stuff isn't the most exciting either. And that 2+ hour runtime was excruciatingly long to get through. My God, was it painful to sit through that movie. I was moving around in my chair into balls, stretching out, just trying to do anything to stay awake. I was like a kid who had his iPad taken away after sitting on it for 6 hours. I didn't know what to do with myself. And I also did not really buy the love story aspect in this film either. I think Diego Luna was kind of the weak spot here. He didn't convince me. And Jennifer Lopez did nothing more than showcase her impressive legs off and that pearly white smile. I don't care. I need something more to hook me. While Kiss of the Spider-Woman is in no way, shape, or form near as cringy as Emilia Perez was last year, I honestly think I'd rather sit through Emilia Perez again just to laugh at how ridiculous that one is. Because at least I can listen to a song like man to woman, woman to man, penis to vagina, and get some humor from that. These songs fall so flat, and because I'm apparently on a tour to see how much pain I can endure, I sat through this entire fucking movie in the theaters. And I imagine I will be one of the few that actually does, because this movie is going to bomb. All right, there you have it, my thoughts on Kiss of the Spider-Woman. Unfortunately, I was not entangled into Miss Lopez's web once again. Number 8. Everybody's patiently been waiting for it, and it's finally here. The thriller event of the fall just dropped on Hulu. I'm, of course, talking about the 2025 version of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Who the fuck was hoping for another version of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle? Especially when Rebecca De Mornay knocked it out of the park the first time. And let's not forget Ernie Hudson as Solomon. The poor bastard's mom was taking too much Tylenol while he was in utero, but he still managed to get shit done. And the film even has Lloyd Braun from Seinfeld in it as a competent father and husband. What do we have in 2025? Well, I'm glad I asked myself that question. This is going to be a spoiler review because, again, it's a new version of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I won't get into the spoilers, though, till later in the review, but just giving you a heads up. Micah Monroe from It Follows and Longlegs, you know, the film that people pretend is good, but I know the truth, is here as the villain of the film, the villainess, one could say, Polly Murphy. Even the name is harmless. Polly, are you out of your mind? In the original, it's Peyton. That's a solid name. That's a strong, fierce name. Sexy name, one would say. I would say that. She's going to be terrorizing the Morales house, targeting Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character. And I have to say, they went full Karen with her in this movie. The look, the tight bun in the hair, the business suits. I hate it. I don't think it's a good look. And I love me some Mary Elizabeth Winstead normally. She has a couple kids like the original, but her husband this time around, oh my God, this guy is the biggest cuck I've ever seen. Miguel is useless in the movie. There's a scene towards the end that's absolutely hysterical where Caitlin is under attack and the husband knows something's wrong. So he pulls his daughter from the softball game early and they head home. But when we cut back to them, he's just kind of sauntering down the sidewalk. Oh, we better hurry up and get home to your mom. Scoo-doo-doo. Oh, look at the birds out today. The one thing I'm going to give this film props for is it doesn't attempt to just redo the same story. This is very much Hand That Rocks the Cradle in name only. The plot is almost entirely new. The only thing that remains is that there's a crazy woman who works with a family, she stays with them, and she's plotting her revenge. There's no lovable groundskeeper, there's no pervy doctor, there's no evil wife planning on how she's gonna take over the family. Instead, we have Polly who befriends Caitlin early on, and she's gonna make this family's life a living hell as the movie progresses. And how she does so is quite hilarious in unintentional ways, because for the most part, her version of sabotage is adding some sugar to a sugarless recipe. Adding microplastics to food that shouldn't have it. This is the most I live in California and this is what scares me type of script I've ever seen play out. Now, eventually things will ratchet up to an exciting degree, but it happens so far late in the game, and there are no fun characters in the meantime to get to know. In the original Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Peyton is really good at this game of chess. She gets the board laid out exactly how she wants it, and she starts knocking over the pieces as they come into play. With the new version, it feels like this character is just kind of throwing shit at the wall. Obviously, she has a plan in mind, which is that of revenge, but all the planning in between seems so careless and half-assed, such as the multiple times she's going to try to come on to the main character in this film. I guess the plan there is Caitlin's going to not want to be with her husband anymore, find him uninteresting. Well, spoiler, she already kind of doesn't think he's that interesting. And double spoiler, he's not. I don't know why she's with him to begin with. But the whole sexual angle where she's flirting with her and whatnot, it just doesn't go anywhere interesting. You know what, there's also no boob shot breastfeeding a stranger's baby. And if we're not gonna even do that, what the hell's the point of this? This film also has a road out front that's more comical than the one found in Pet Sematary, where those giant semis are flying by going like 100 miles an hour. Here it's the same on a smaller scale. Cars are just whipping through this neighborhood, and the stop sign is down, and it's just the most lazy foreshadowing ever smashed over your head because they cut back to it 2 or 3 times within the first 15 minutes of the movie. And so I knew instantly it was gonna come into play. The way our villains play these roles is night and day as well, where Rebecca De Mornay was very soft-spoken, genteel to the people she needed to be, but then ruthless and quite vicious to those that stepped on her in any way, was very fun to watch play out. And it made sense how she earned the trust of the family so quickly. In contrast, Polly over here looks unhinged from day one. Just looking at this woman as she constantly purses the duck lips and has these smoky eyes just staring into your soul. It's not coming off as pleasant and a joy to be around. Instead, I feel like this woman's gonna lose her mind and attack me at any moment. Thrillers set in the 90s also have a massive advantage when it comes to technology. Even if you're very well off, have a beautiful home, you probably don't have a great security system. But in 2025, it's laughable to see a super wealthy family not have a damn Ring camera, and if they do have one, not use it ever. And I'm pretty sure I saw when they were walking by a wall, there was a security system that they just never use. And on top of that, because they've built up Caitlyn to be this very neurotic person who has a troubled history, who's very protective over her children, you would imagine there'd be a nanny cam somewhere in that house, but no. No nanny cam, no Ring cam, nothing that would easily identify the troubling behavior going on at the house. My favorite ridiculous scene in the new film is Polly is given a recommendation from a woman who supposedly she nannied for 2 full years. Well, later in the game, Caitlyn gets a little suspicious of this woman and does some digging, where she finds herself outside of an AA meeting where she's going to confront the person because under her recent calls in her phone log from several months ago, she only had to parse through 2 calls total. And so she called the woman back, saw that she picked up the phone and then ghosted the lady, goes over there and Caitlyn confronts her, spilling the beans on what actually happened, which is, drum roll please, the lady felt bad for Polly. So she lied about her being a nanny for 2 years for the family. What? Who does that? I thought perhaps Polly blackmailed this woman, or maybe it was a psycho friend of Polly's. No, just a lady that felt bad for the whole situation. But before we get to the final reveal, Jessica Biel, let's talk about the production of this movie. It is a straight-to-streamer. It has that straight-to-streamer look. It's very crisp-looking visuals. It definitely doesn't have that soft, cinematic look that the original has. And for some reason, the director went all in on these dumb shots where the person's kind of repeated in a 50% opacity on the sides of the frames. It never looks good. I don't really understand the point of even doing it. So the bottom line is you're missing out on nothing if you don't watch this movie. I don't think it's the worst straight-to-streamer I've ever seen. It's engaging enough to keep you focused from like a laughable standpoint. Like, this is ridiculous. The acting's like schlocky and over the top, but whatever. It's watchable crap. I just wouldn't recommend you wasting your precious time on Earth watching this one, unless of course you also decided in your infinite wisdom to chip away at your life reviewing movies online like I did. But let's get to the big climax of the film. The reason Polly is terrorizing this house by adding trans fats to the menu is simple. When she was just a little girl, 8, 9 years old, something like that, her father was having his way with not just her, but Caitlyn, who also knew the family. Except for her name wasn't Caitlyn then. And Polly's name was different too. They legally had them changed because of the psychological torture that went on there. More so for Polly because Caitlyn said, I've had enough of this bullshit. I'm burning this mother to the ground. And that's exactly what she did. She took a lighter to that son bitch and watched the thing burn. Unfortunately, not just the father was in the house at the time, but also the mother and Polly's poor little siblings. I think there was 2 of them, maybe just one. It doesn't matter. And so P Money has been plotting her revenge for like 30 years, waiting for Caitlyn to have a family of her own for Polly to take from her. Much like the original, there's not a big body count in this movie. Only one person dies. It's a friend of the family who, at the behest of Caitlyn, does a little research into this Polly character. He sneaks into her little poolside bungalow, rifles through her trash, brings it back to his place so he can do a little experimentation. Short for experimentation. Side note, I also found it very funny that Caitlyn's like, I suppose you can stay living with us since you've been so great for the last couple months. We do have this one room off by the pool. It's nothing special. You got a closet, you got a bathroom, you got a full bed, there's a full kitchen with an oven, a fridge, the whole 9 yards. But you know, this is basically what everybody in America has already, so we're nothing new. We're nothing special. All right, the friend takes the trash back to his house where he proceeds to pour it out onto his kitchen table, as one does. And this is probably my favorite scene in the movie because he pulls up a soaked to the bone tampon, dripping blood, pure red, and we're gonna focus on this shot like 4 or 5 times. The director's like, yep, this is the money shot. This is cinema. He puts on the rubber gloves, He starts doing the research, and this is how he finds out who Polly actually is, how she has a history with Caitlin, and it all really comes together. Unfortunately, as smart as this guy is, he's a fucking idiot. Because instead of informing his friends first about this, he confronts Polly and invites her over. What? Instantly, I'm thinking, well, he's dead. And yeah, he's dead. It happens so pathetically. Polly goes to use the bathroom, comes back for a peekaboo with a bat, hits him across the face, drops him to the floor. Keep in mind, Micah Monroe in this movie looks like she's on the Ariana Grande diet, which consists of, I guess, not eating, because this woman is nothing but bones at this point. I'm kind of concerned for her health, but she drops this guy to the ground. He's like, I could stop you, but instead I'm going to take out my phone and slowly dial 911. What? Polly's like, not on my watch, motherfucker. Oh, okay, we can't do anymore. I'm completely exhausted from that. The final confrontation is now upon us, where our little Polly Pocket heads back to the house. She starts playing the mom card. Caitlin has lost her mind, becoming a little frantic and unhinged as she realized her pills have been replaced by, I don't know, who cares? They've just been replaced with something else, something that makes her like a rage monster, I suppose. She's not able to see her kids for a day or two, shows back up at the house. Polly answers the door. They get the one-on-one confrontation. Short for confrontation, which leads Caitlin to pull our Polly in for a big mama bear hug, saying, I'm here for you now. I'm sorry for everything I did. I don't care that you killed my friend. It's all right. She didn't even bring up the friend. That's fine, though. Polly's like, nah, I don't think so. Stabs her in the side of the rib cage with a broken piece of glass, dropping MEW right to her ass. And I did rhyme that on purpose. I don't know to what avail. You're not going to keep Mama Bear down for long, though. She grabs the side of the kitchen island to pull herself up. Polly grabs the pan, breaks her hand. Caitlin's still not down for the count. She starts pushing her around, eventually throwing Polly through the glass window, rendering her unconscious or something. All I'm thinking is, okay, take that pan and start beating this bitch to death with it. Call the cops now while you're looking at her body. Do something to restrain her. Do something like break her legs. I don't care. What does Caitlin do? She leaves. She goes into the other room to grab her baby, who's starting to cry a little bit. The fucking baby's fine. What are you doing? The dad and other kid are off at that softball game I foreshadowed earlier, remember? He's now on his way home. He's like, scoop-de-doo. Oh, love the work you did on that hedge over there. You get some new clippers? Oh, yeah, I'm just going home to see my wife. I'm pretty sure she's being assaulted right now. It's the nanny. She's pretty hot. We finally hit the crescendo of the film, and this is easily the best moment of the movie. Caitlin gets in the car with the baby. They start to back out of the driveway. Polly, shot out of a cannon, jumps on top of it. Starts breaking the windshield. And you know what's gonna happen because they foreshadowed it in the lamest way possible. We're going into that death trap road, and just like clockwork, she backs up. Car body slams hers, sending Polly in a triple axle across the road. It is the funniest second shot you will see in quite some time. Absolutely hilarious. I rewound it to watch it again. It's like when my son used to play Beyblades and he would pull that little ripper cord and it would spin around. That's Polly in the air. She's down for the count. Her arm is like over here somewhere, blood all over. It's not a good look for her. And that's about the time Miguel finally gets back home. Oh, hey, what happened? Sorry, we stopped off for burgers. That's good. But I don't recommend you stop off for The Hand That Rocks the Cradle 2025. Just watch the original. It's a classic. And full disclosure, I did not know how well it held up. I figured it would be kind of cheesy by today's standards. So I actually rewatched it with my wife and daughter after this new one that my wife bailed on halfway through. She's like, you're on your fucking own. I'm out of this. We all sat and watched the old one, had a great time. It holds up very well. The dad maybe getting bodied, falling off the stairs, and breaking both of his legs was a little much. But outside of that, you have memorable characters, you got some great dialogue, you have a good setting, everything really fires well. Only other negative I would say is that end is super abrupt. You know, they stop the villain. There is a good climax for about 10 minutes, a good action, you know, like running around the house and whatnot. But then boom, credits hit without just a day later scene, which I always like. I like when they pay it off with a nice healthy ending. Maybe we're back in the breakfast nook, having a little OJ and some pancakes again, but that's fine. Small hangups aside, the original is definitely worth a watch. This new one, yeah, avoid it like the plague. Just like almost all these straight-to-streamer garbage remakes or reboots or whatever you want to call them. Number 7. The actress that's not Natalie Portman or Daisy Ridley stars in a brand new straight-to-Netflix streamer called The Woman in Cabin 10. It's a tantalizing murder mystery thriller. But the biggest mystery, is this a film that can actually be watched from beginning to end on Netflix? Let's find out together. All right, for this movie, I'm not gonna double dip. There's not gonna be 2 videos. I'm gonna cover everything in this one. So it will be spoiler free up until it's not, and I'll let you know. If Keira Knightley plays Laura, or Lo for short, she's a respected writer who's just been given the opportunity of a lifetime to travel on this beautiful ship for a few days with a bunch of upper class rich folks. She's gonna find herself cruising for a bruising though, as the first night she's on this ship, someone goes overboard. Who that is? That's the question of the day, and one this 90-minute R-rated film is gonna spend time going into. For about 40 minutes, and then you figure out everything, and you have another 45 minutes to just kind of watch stuff happen. Thriller is one of my favorite movie genres and song, so I was really excited to watch this one. Less excited when I found out it was going straight to streaming. They don't have the best track record. Like with all whodunit stories, this film is going to spend a good 30 minutes showing you the lay of the land, setting up the chessboard, getting all the pieces in place, putting all the cards on the table. I feel like I did 2 metaphors too many to cover that. This whole soiree can be accredited to Richard Bulmer, played by Guy Pearce. We also have a character on this boat who has a history with Lo. His name is Ben Morgan, and he's played by that guy from Jupiter Ascending. Remember Jupiter Ascending? Everyone else on the ship falls into your standard cliche. You have the rock and roll guy that shows up late to the party, devil may care attitude. You have the uppity pompous Karen who, if you put even one toe out of line, will take her steak knife and plunge it into your back before she even cuts into her meal. While I typically like these types of characters, they are given virtually nothing to do here, which is a shame because this is a beautiful ship, which you think they could have a lot of fun with. Unfortunately, not a lot of fun to be had here. It's an isolated film taking place almost entirely on this boat, but it's not utilized very well. Oftentimes, you just see our protagonists going up and down the same hallway, or the rich people are gathered around having some drinks and talking shop. There's really nothing else What is the point of this cruise? This is the most boring ass cruise I've ever seen rich people on. You'd think there'd be some music. You'd think there'd be some lively entertainment. No, these are a bunch of stick in the mud, boring ass people. But it's not really about them. It's about Lo and the situation she finds herself in. As I stated, something goes overboard on her first night. She is kind of witness to it. She hears the splash, she sees a bloody handprint on the window next door, and so she's going to use her investigative skills to figure out who died, why they died, and the person responsible for dying her. For killing her. Didn't make sense the other way. To add a little bit of layer to all of this, Lo was recently traumatized by an event in her life where she watched someone drown to death. So there's the possibility that she's lost her mind. Okay, we have something here, is what I said in the first act. And then once the obvious reveals start to come in halfway through, you get to a final act that's both ridiculous and also very dull. Not helping matters is Keira Knightley, who I typically love seeing in films. She's kind of a little spitfire most of the time with that pouty jaw that she does and that stern yet hot demeanor. Here she's on autopilot, and I'm guessing it's because this character she's playing is supposed to be very low-key, also dealing with the recent tragedy, so she just comes off as a very bland individual. She starts to kind of come out of her shell in the later half, but by that point, I just really don't care much about this woman or her cause. The visuals are not helping things in the slightest. This is a very muted color palette we're going with. It's very drab, it's very dour. And I get the director's going with this because that typically makes a movie look a little bit more professional, a little bit more slick, and it is supposed to elevate the very downtrodden feel of the film. It's kind of just putting me to sleep though, because unfortunately, this movie does the two things you shouldn't do in a mystery thriller. It has very little mystery, and it has almost zero thrills. The most death-defying moment in the film features our hero having to just go from one balcony to the other, which is nothing more than grabbing up to the next railing and just scooting your ass across. But the movie attempts to add some drama and tension, and it completely fails at that. There's no close-up shots of her face panicking or of her hands starting to slip. We have a lame shoe start to fall, but then immediately she's on the other side before you know it. It's just lame tension across the board. This, like a lot of straight-to-streaming films, falls into that miserable category of it's okay enough to have on in the background. I would never say, yeah, definitely sit down and spend 90 minutes watching this. There's far better thrillers out there that do similar situations. Hell, there's a third one coming out soon from the Knives Out crew, probably going to be quite a bit better than this. And I can guarantee the characters will be more lively, there will be more layer to the story, there will be more misdirects, more red herrings, things of that nature, and not such a stale by the numbers situation like we have here, where you know what's going to happen, and it happens exactly how you expect. All right, there you have it. My thoughts on the film. Incredibly lame from front to back. Now I'm going to get into some spoilers for just a minute or two. But honestly, anybody that has ever seen a movie with Guy Pearce should know right out of the gates, he's the bad guy. When Guy Pearce showed up on the ship, I'm like, oh, so he's the villain. And then there's the mysterious lady up top who just kind of tips the hat to Keira Knightley, then goes away. I said, all right, well, that's the woman in room 10. And it turns out both of those things were correct. Her name is Annie Bulmer, also his partner. They have amassed themselves quite the empire of wealth. But after many years of fighting the cancer that's riddled her body, she has decided that she's going to change her will to give all of her assets to charity. Nothing is going to her husband. Well, he knows about this situation. He's not cool with it. Situation, of course, short for situation. So he has decided, in his infinite wisdom, to knock her out early, find a doppelganger to take her place, shave the head, have her go to a meeting where she'll sign over her portion of the company to him. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom, bada penis. It's all done. It was almost too easy. But Annie walked in on her doppelganger with her husband, and he had to kill her right then and there, dumped her body over the side of the cruise ship, and that's where Lo heard things go down. And again, all of this happens before the hour mark, so we already know the entire mystery, how he sought this woman out via algorithm, facial something or another. She played the part, but she didn't know the dirty details of killing the wife. And that's where Lo comes in to figure out the mystery. The whole thing really did a disservice to all the other cast members who are essentially useless in the film. They don't get enough screen time. They don't really get set up like they could be the murderer ever. Because anytime someone is a potential killer, not more than 30 seconds later, they completely remove that. For instance, the husband-wife combo, at first the husband's like, I don't know where my wife is. I don't know what's going on. But then 10 seconds later, oh, just kidding. She passed out in the bathtub from drinking too much the night before. That arc is over. In the final act of the movie, things go off the rails pretty hard when Lo jumps ship when she confronts the two villains, Guy Pearce and his doctor. She survives the frigid cold temperatures of the ocean. She sets up a little fire in an abandoned house, as one does. And then she finds an evening gown to put on. I don't know where the fuck she pulled that out of. Maybe they addressed it and I nodded off for 10 seconds and missed it. But then she crashes the final party where she announces the truth about what's going on. But before Lo can get up front and stage in front of all these investors and rich people, Guy Pearce's Richard is like, no, she's crazy, don't let her talk. But then his fake wife goes, yes, she can talk, let her speak. And Lo speaks. And she doesn't say a whole lot before Richard's like, well, that's not even my real wife, okay? I paid this woman to play her. I don't know how you quickly jump to that. And then he grabs a knife, puts it to her neck. He starts to back out. And one of the security ladies pulls out a gun and shoots him once. And he's like, ugh, you shot me with a high-powered rifle. Ouch. I'm going to keep going, though. And the security lady's like, chink. I don't have a shot anymore. But don't worry. Lo grabs a wrench or some shit. And she's like, welcome to Earth. And she beats him across the head, freeing the woman so that she can check notes, just live out her life freely? I'm sorry, she was an accessory to murder. She wasn't a hostage in this situation. Why does she get to go free? But we don't have time to dwell on it because right after this scene plays out, the movie's basically done. We see Lo one more time back at the office and people are like, well done, Lo, we love you. And she gets a call, and it's her friend that she saved, the actress lady. And the actress lady's like, you should come hang out sometime. And Kira looks at the camera and goes, bing. She maybe didn't do that, but that was the implication that there's going to be more of these movies. And there's probably more books to base them on, because I think the first one came out in like 2016. That's many years to churn out a bunch of dreck. And that's pretty much what this was. Watchable mediocrity. Number 6. Popular YouTube movie critic turned popular YouTube movie, whatever the opposite of critic is, turned potentially popular movie director. Chris Stuckmann has his first feature-length film in theaters called Shelby Oaks. This film raised a bunch of money on Kickstarter. It took several years to make, and it even got a nice last-second infusion of cash by the new distributor, Neon. And so here we are. Shelby Oaks released in theaters. The critic has come full circle and now is being critiqued for his work. All of his ranting, all of his complaints about generic films, lazy tropes have all come to a head, and he can finally show the world how you do horror correctly. The biggest question, though, is did I feel Stuckmannized after his film was over, or did I feel like getting euthanized instead? I'm gonna talk Shelby Oaks in a spoiler-free review. All right, what we have with Shelby Oaks is an R-rated, hour and 30-ish minute film. The movie's rated R for swearing and a bit of blood and gore, not a lot. This to me leans more thriller than it does straight horror, as we're gonna spend a good chunk of time trying to unravel what happened to the paranormal paranoids. It's appropriately enough a YouTube channel featuring 4 friends who end up going missing while out on the road hunting down their next big case. Because as you could probably guess based on the name Paranormal Paranoids, they are researching the paranormal while filming it all for their audience, getting scared as they lean around corners into closets. Oh, there's a ghost! Oh, they shake the camera. They do all the shit that you do. But of the 4 in the ensemble group, Riley was the most genuine. She didn't put out misinformation. She didn't ham it up for the camera. Her feelings, her emotions were real. And upon her disappearance, it's gonna be this knowledge that keeps her sister Maya searching for her. Quick note, I have this issue every time there's a character named Maya, M-I-A spelling, because it can also be pronounced Mia. I don't remember how her name is said in the film, but she's a woman and she's the sister. That's the important piece here. Maybe it's Maya, maybe it's Mia, maybe it's Maybelline, who gives a shit? The point is Maya is going to be on a hunt for her sister for the majority of this film, and as her journey unfolds, she's gonna find herself a one-woman army deep in the trenches of mystery and intrigue. Sounds enticing on paper. On paper. What Christopher Columbus Stuckmann has done here with this film is made a movie that's unfortunately about as generic as his last few years on YouTube have been. From a directing standpoint, this is a pretty looking movie. The shots are well done. It does not feel amateur by any stretch of the imagination. Now, as far as style's concerned, that's completely gone. There's no real feel to his movie. It just looks good. I will give him props for attempting to blend genres a little bit, because we're introduced to this film as a documentary. We get interviews with family and friends and victims of the 4 that went missing. We get found footage shots from the point of view of the paranoids. And mixed in with these low resolution camera shots, there's also kind of your standard, generic, beautiful 4K visuals, just showcasing the forest, just showcasing some of the town. And that all really does have a documentary feel. The issue here is it's just not the most interesting way to open up a story. Because Chris is kind of taking the easy way out here. He's presenting a lot of information really quickly so that he can jump to the stuff that he wants to do, which is to basically just emulate horror movie scenes he's liked in the past. The actress Camille Sullivan, who plays Maya, our lead protagonist, is good. She's good. I don't have issues with her per se. Again, it just falls on the script. Because unlike virtually every horror movie I've ever watched, there is zero levity in this script. I don't believe there's a single point in this movie where an ounce of humor is added in to just kind of break up tension or add some dimension to the storyline or flesh out this character a tiny bit. All we know about her is she really loves her sister and she really wants her back. Over a decade later, she is still tormented by this, and that's fair. That would absolutely be me as well. However, I needed to see a little bit more of her life to get to understand this person more, because right now she's just a vessel for being scared and upset all the time. That is her range of emotion. I almost felt bad for the actress because I see her crying in like 80% of this film. And usually that's accompanied with a huge lip quiver and her hands are shaking constantly. Even the scariest of movies will have some dark comedy or something to kind of break up the staleness that's constantly going on with this type of horror or thriller, whatever you want to call it, because that makes the next attempted scare more impactful. You get a range of emotion. It's like a roller coaster. You want the highs and the lows. Unfortunately, with Shelby Oaks, I'm just sitting on the roller coaster and it's not going up and down. It's just maintaining. And unfortunately, that leads to some of the lamest movies to talk about because it's not so bad that it's good fun, and it's just not very good that it's worth talking much about. Shelby Oaks is competently made, but doesn't seem to have its own voice. As far as this being his freshman first, Stuckmann shows some skill for sure, and I think he's only going to get better from here. So absolute props to him for making his dream a reality, but I'm here reviewing the movie, not the person or the journey he went on. Because everybody's got a journey. Who gives a shit? I'm telling you whether or not you should waste your hard-earned money to see this in theaters. If you have one of those movie passes, Shelby Oaks is a fine enough sit-through. I was getting quite frustrated with this character though, because she does some really stupid shit. And to add on to it, there's no real excuse for why. Since there is over a decade of time that's gone by since her sister has gone missing, there is no sense of urgency in the film. So watching this character leave her house in the dead of night, go into an abandoned prison cell in an abandoned town by herself without notifying anyone is completely fucking nuts. One of the first scenes in the movie, she witnesses a guy blow his head off, and this is in the trailer. She's spackled with blood. We then cut to later in the night, and she still has the blood all over her face. There is zero reason why she didn't jump in the shower or run her hands through the sink and at least splash some water and clean that shit off. Another man's remains are on her face. This is the kind of crap that just seems mind-boggling to keep in the film. The great thing about writing urgency into a movie script is that allows the characters to make really dumb decisions because they're panicking. They're in a hurry. They rush out the house and they don't shut the front door. They leave their keys behind so they can't get into the car because they are in a panic state. Sister Mia doesn't have this excuse. The film also half-assedly dives into the relationship with her husband. This stuff's all just completely useless. And outside of those two, there's really no other performance. The whole movie rests on this poor woman's shoulders. Oh, and if you're going to the film for Keith David, got one of his t-shirts on right now, you're gonna be disappointed. He has less screen time in this film than Samuel L. Jackson does in Deep Blue Sea. Now scratch that, he has less screen time in this film than Steven Seagal does in Executive Decision. I bet you didn't think you'd hear an Executive Decision reference in 2025. He's the first name that comes up on the title sequence, and it was really nice to see him for the minute and a half he could muster up. But no, this is not a Keith David buddy road trip movie, okay? She's solo for like the entire film. Story and characters aside, how are the kills? How's the gore? How are the scares? They're virtually non-existent. There's a very small amount of killing in the film. Most of it's done via shaky cam, and the scares all come from every trope you've seen before. The camera zooming in on a background that's artifacted and you kind of make out a figure. The CG dogs with glowing eyes ominously roaming in the distance. And you have your classic jump scare of a scene transition via a trunk slamming hard. There was one genuine audible gasp from the audience during a scene where she's looking through some of the footage. I remember distinctly hearing behind me a woman go, "Oh!" So you're definitely gonna get a little bit of that. But as far as the atmosphere goes, again, it looks pretty, but it's lacking tension. It's lacking that chill that you get when you watch a great horror film. And again, I think it's because the story's just too weak. You're spending so much time in here trying to puzzle this bullshit together, and none of it really adds up in a satisfactory way. I don't even know if it all adds up full stop. Some of it, when I start to think back, doesn't make much sense. He kind of goes in different directions and never really stands in one place. But Shelby Oaks is also not interesting enough for me to really sit and think about it either. I'm already kind of moving on just talking about the movie. And I suppose that's a fine place to end things. I was disappointed with this movie. When I saw the trailer, I thought, damn, this looks pretty good. I think Chris Stuckmann's got something here. Final product, unfortunately, did not hit for me. Number 5. Saw the poster for Bone Lake the other day, had a hot chick in a swimsuit covered in blood in a lake of skulls, and I thought, this movie's for me. This one's for me. I did not watch a trailer before going to the film though, so I went in fresh as a daisy. You got a title of Bone Lake, there's a hot chick on the cover, it's rated R, okay. All the pieces are in play for me to get my perv on. Give me the spice, give me the gore, give me all of it. I eat it up. Is what I said going in. And then I saw the movie. It didn't give me shit. So this is an R-rated film. It's 90 minutes long. It's already speaking my love language. I like a quick 90-minute horror film. Those usually work out well. Not in this case. This is going to be spoiler-free for the first half, but I really didn't like this movie, so I will go into spoilers later and I'll let you know, okay? I'm guessing this was done on a pretty quaint budget too, seeing as there's like 4 people in the whole movie. And they're gonna be spending an extended weekend together at this beautiful Airbnb secluded in the middle of the woods on this gorgeous Bone Lake. 2 sets of couples coming together to stay at this place. What's the worst that could happen? You know, besides the fact that they don't know each other and the Airbnb double booked. I feel like this just happened in Barbarian, but whatever, that is the focus of this film. Our protagonists here are Sage and Diego. They have a healthy relationship. They've been together for a long time. I mean, it's healthy-ish. There was a little slip up from Sage with her ex-boyfriend. It was a one-time thing, not a big deal. They've turned the corner, and they're here to spend a lovely weekend together before Diego pops the big question, asking Sage to be his bride. He was not counting on Will and Sin entering the arena, though. These 2 lovebirds show up like they came out of an Instagram photo shoot. And they seem like perfectly pleasant people. So, the 4 of them decide, in their infinite wisdom, to share the place. Because the nearest hotel is a full 50 minutes away. Gross, that's so far. That's almost an hour. You couldn't pay me to be in the car with Sage for an hour. No, she's great. Actually, Sage isn't great either. She's perfectly fine. She's kind of got this Florence Pugh at home vibe to her. Then you have Diego, who is a total bitch. This guy puts the man, and oh man, is this guy a wuss. As the movie progresses, you will get progressively more annoyed at Diego and the fact that he never stands up for himself, throws a punch, or does anything to resemble a person. He acts as more of a plant in most scenes in the corner, which can be frustrating to watch. And I found this storyline to be something more akin to a Netflix streamer, meaning dumb. I feel like it thinks it's smarter than it is. And at first, I'm kind of on board. The first act's okay. Then we build up this cat and mouse thing that it's doing, a little bit of a psychological thriller. You have mysterious doors, you got locks, you got people that you're unsure about. They're playing each other. There's a game at hand. Okay, what else do you got? Well, it turns out the whole thing's just gonna spiral into nonsense in the final act. It becomes utter schlock. It's like they ran out of budget too, because the first 2/3 of this movie look pretty nice. There's some good vista shots. There's some pretty cinematography. That all goes out the window in the final 30 minutes, and the thing turns into Looney Tunes stupid. There's a little bit of action. The choreography's miserable. The way it's framed up, the blocking, none of it is working right. Now, as for the poster, where we see the hot chick in the lake, while that does appear at one point, it's not hot. It is a lake, but the movie's called Bone Lake. You would think there'd be some boning going on. Not much. Not much. And it is rated R for some blood very late in the game. Otherwise, there isn't shit in this film. There's a major tonal shift in the third act, which didn't work at all for me. And that means this movie doesn't work at all for me either. It was a pretty bad watch. It had me on the hook for a while until it lost me, and I almost got up and just walked out because I did not care what happened to anyone by the end. Okay, that's all I'm going to say in the spoiler-free section. Now, if you want to stay with me, I'm going to ruin this movie, but spoiler, you don't really need to waste your time watching it. So let's get into it. The plot revolves around Diego and Sage's characters. Diego decided he was going to take the year off from work to write a great book, which means Sage is the sole income provider right now. I'm sorry, do you need to not work in order to write a book? You can't do both? Whatever, setting that aside, he's apparently not a great writer either, and that's going to get thrown in his face several times before the end of the movie when he's like, hey, you're right, Sage, I do kind of suck at writing. I'm going to go back to teaching. You're the more talented one. Like, come on! Anyway, they go to this Airbnb, and the big reason for it is simple. Diego wants to propose to her during that final sunset on the beach. Well, this gets ruined when Will and Sin show up. These lovebirds do not want to leave. They are about to play rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to stay, but that gets cut off by Sin. We're all adults here. We all seem like we're normal people that aren't going to murder each other in our sleep. Why don't we try this out together? It's a big place. So they agree, and they all stay together, and it starts out pretty positively. There's nothing weird going on. They're drinking, they're getting loose, they're playing some games, they're having some fun. And then they get to the first challenge, which is these 3 doors, these ominous doors in the corner of the house, and Will wants to crack them open and see what's inside. Good thing he has a mallet that he can just knock on the side of the lock a few times, open that bad boy up, and see what's in. The first room is giving 50 Shades of Grey. There's a sex bed, there's a bunch of dildos lined up on the wall, and I'm like, all right, now we're finally getting somewhere. And then they close the door and never go back. So then I was like, okay, well, I don't need to be here any longer. The next door they go into is far more creepy. There is a Ouija board on the ground surrounded by candles, and there's newspaper clippings all over the walls about all these people that went missing at Bone Lake. Supposedly, the lake was named this because of all the bodies and all the bones littering the floor of this lake. This is enough to creep Diego and Sage out. They leave the room. They're like, we don't even want to see what's behind the third door. But I already knew what was behind the third door at this point. That was the reveal that these 2 lovebirds are not who they claim they are, and they're actually the bad guys. That's right, Will and Sin, it turns out, are not good people. Which the movie's definitely gonna let you know pretty early on, when Sin is trying to get Diego to lust over her, putting him in precarious situations. The classic, oh, I lost my contacts. Can you help me find them in my underwear drawer? Just move those dildos out of the way that I'm never gonna use in the movie! By the way, there is a sex scene earlier between Diego and Sage, and they're on a bearskin rug. She's got like a towel or a blanket around her lower half so that we don't see her ass or like any penetration going on, short for penetration going on. But the camera does a top-down view, and I'm almost positive I saw her shorts on underneath. So, bad? Just lazy. Just bad. The movie really takes a turn when Will's gonna go out on a 5 or 6 mile jog in the morning, and he happens to cross Diego, who is hiding an engagement ring for Sage. He inquires about what's going on, Diego tells him, and then Will, a day later, weaponizes it against him at brunch when he pulls out that very same ring from Grandma and proposes to Sin. And he even has the cojones to say, I was gonna do it lame and go out at sunset on the beach, but I just can't wait any longer. This naturally upsets Diego to the point where he does absolutely nothing. He goes, Will, I need to see you outside. We need to talk outside, Will. Yeah, outside? Will puts on this pathetic performance about how Sin has cheated on him in the past and he needs to lock this ass down. So he took the ring and he feels bad, but he really needs this. And Diego goes along with it. What? Now the pieces are starting to move. After Diego has both been seduced by Sin and has been hoodwinked by Will, he lets Sage and Will go solo to the store to get more groceries. What? And this is where Sin and Will are going to separate and dominate. Command and conquer, baby. Sin tries to put the moves on old Diego once more, while Will is trying to get Sage to bang him in the car. Do they or don't they? Well, they're at odds with each other when they get home, not sure who to trust. But because their relationship is strong enough and they suspect that some foul play is going on, they are able to separate themselves from these crazy people for a second to find out what's behind door number 3. And wouldn't you know it, it turns out that Will and Sin actually own this place and they've been fucking with people for a while. It's all about the chase, baby. It's all about breaking up relationships and then dumping the bodies in the lake. Classic. And this is when the movie goes from mildly intriguing to downright terrible. As Will and Sin come in the room, you figured it out. We're crazy now. And Sin suddenly becomes all disheveled and no longer supermodel-ish. She's just nuts now. And we find out they're actually brother-sister lovers. Incest. You gotta love it. Diego and Sage attempt to leave the house, but it's no use. These two idiots are somehow giving them the slip every time. And this is where I just can't even with this movie. Sage and Diego, or Diago, I'm not actually sure what it is to be honest with you, but they are running away together. The idiot hurts his leg. Ow, ow. And then they split up in the house. He is gone for like 10 minutes while Sage has a knife fight in the kitchen against Sin. Terribly choreographed, by the way. I'm pretty sure at one point when Sin tries to stab down on Sage, this is the classic reversing of film shot where the knife, she catches the knife like it's stabbing down on her, but in actuality how they filmed it is they had the knife down and they just reversed the footage because it looks so bad. It's like, huh! Sage is dealing with both of these jackasses for a while Diago is just, I don't know where. She's gone. Eventually, he will reappear and stab Sin in the foot as she's crossing the dock that he was for some reason hiding under. But unfortunately, Will is gonna catch up and kill Diago with the chainsaw. I'm like a chainsaw. What? A motherfucking chainsaw. What? Come and get it. Sage would like to ask him a few questions as she buries one right into the back of his skull, causing him to fall down on the chainsaw. And this is really the only bloody scene in the entire movie. They get onto the boat where Sin's like, surprise! She hops on. This whole thing is filmed like ass. They clearly ran out of budget at this point. The boat's moving around. Diago has the axe while Sage is driving. She's got a knife, keep in mind. Sin has a knife. He's got a fucking axe. And of course he sucks and can't hit her. She falls off the boat. He's able to cut off a couple fingers, and I already knew there's that stupid ring from Grandma. He's gonna put it on Sage to end the movie. I just fucking know it. But Sin falls into the water. Her hair gets tangled up in the boat motor, and Sage is like, let me boat you a question. That one didn't really work, like the axe you a question, but whatever. She runs her over with the boat. The film ends with Sage Dog and D Money sitting down at the end of the boat at night, and he grabs that ring off the finger, throws it in the water, puts it on Sage, and they laugh. And that's Bone Lake. It's stupid. Number 4. Yeah, it would appear that Disney has listened. They have heard the siren callings of one fan out there who's been wanting another Tron movie to come out, and here we are with Tron Ares, the third installment to the Troniverse that spans back all the way to 1982. And that's right, you heard me correctly, the third installment. Because apparently greatness takes time to create. And when you are building up a property as intricate as Tron, you need to make sure every piece fits perfectly. Which is kind of a head scratcher when watching Tron Ares, and it completely ignores everything that happened in Legacy. I saw Tron Ares last night. I'm gonna give you a review for it now. Well, we have a movie that came out this year in 2025, a full 15 years after Tron Legacy, which, to be fair, is a smaller window than we had between the OG and the sequel. And as I said in the opener, everything about Legacy is pretty much tossed aside. There's little droplets of references, but for the most part, Sam is gone, no Olivia Wilde, which instantly drops this by like 3 letter grades because she's perfect in that film. In fact, Tron is ignored in Tron Ares. There's no Tron. He didn't show up. He's not in this one. No, Jared Leto showed up. We have Ares, the god of war, in a computer simulated program. He's played by the Joker himself. Morbius has returned, this time in digital form. It's Tron in time, baby! Now, I, to this day, do not understand the appeal of Jared Leto. He must work for someone somewhere. I liked him in Fight Club when he got his face beat in, and I liked him in Panic Room when he started on fire. Otherwise, outside of a good performance in Dallas Buyers Club, I just have not Dallas bought what he's been selling. Here, though, since he is just playing walking code, expression, personality, all that's kind of omitted. Because Ares has one purpose: to be the best master control system he can be. Highly skilled, super strength, super intelligence. This AI knows how to get shit done. But he is not the control program for Kevin Flynn's company, Encom. No, he's actually part of a rival company's system, the Dillinger system, run by Julian Dillinger and Scully from X-Files. There isn't a Flynn in charge of Encom either. No, those reins have been passed to the new protagonist of this film, Eve Kim. And I gotta tell you, shifting gears from a wild card CEO to the son of a wild card CEO to this brand new character who's a complete stick in the mud lame ass character, it's a ballsy move. Greta Lee plays Eve Kim, who is a very kind, generous, very smart individual who's made some very impressive video games in the past, but now she's on a new mission to lead this company into the future and do her dead sister proud. That's right. She's got some trauma in her life. She lost her sister, and we're gonna find this out very early on when she plays back a 10-second video of her sis being like, "Hey, glad you made it up there. I'm probably dead." I don't know what it is about modern movie scripts that try to use a cheat code when it comes to sympathy. You know, it's nice to connect with the sisters, see them together, how they interact, and then you pull one of them away. Then you take that character from not just Kim, but also the audience. Then we get actual emotional connection and loss. They did this recently with that last ass Jurassic World film, where both Scarlett Johansson's character and Idris Elba talk about how they lost colleagues and kids. And I'm just like, who the fuck are you talking about? What? I don't know these people. I don't care. But Eve Kim does care, so we're gonna go on this journey with her as she tries to crack the code. She's trying to solve the greatest mystery they're facing today: the permanence code. What this does is allows things from inside the computer program to be built into the real world and be sustainable. Right now, both companies are after this tech, and they can only allow things into the real world for like 29 minutes, some random arbitrary number. That's not acceptable when Dillinger is trying to build up an army to sell to the government, and Eve is trying to build up sustainable energy, food, and medical treatments for disease. While lame-ass Eve Kim is the central protagonist, we are going to spend a good amount of time with Ares too, and I find his stuff to be a lot more interesting than the former. Now, Tron hasn't made a name for itself over the years for having like a deep, profound plot or a impactful, touching story. It's pretty much about the visuals and the banger soundtracks. This time around, we have the visuals, we have Nine Inch Nails doing the beats. I don't think either hold a candle to Tron Legacy, which again came out 15 years Richard prior. The massive leap from Tron to Legacy is night and day. It's insane how beautiful Legacy looks. And again, Olivia Wilde helps with that as well. With Tron Ares, it's not a bad looking movie, but it is missing the style. mainly because we spend a good chunk of this movie inside the real world and less time on the grid. Now, massive fan of the original Tron is going to eat up some nostalgia bait they have in here later on, and one of the most forced cameos I've ever seen in a film in quite some time. But even that section, I don't think lived up to some of the hype going in. Well, as for the villains of this film, Ares, Leto, once again playing the anti-hero role, torn between his programming and his AI learning abilities. Then there's his right-hand woman, Athena, who I enjoyed every time she was on camera. She was a force to be reckoned with, a lot of fun with her. Then you have Evan Peters as Julian Dillinger. Evan Peters is always solid in films. Here, not really an exception. I wouldn't say he's setting the world ablaze, but he's a fine foil. And I love seeing my Gillian Anderson. I love seeing my Scully on camera. Unfortunately, she gets very little to do here. The worst aspect of the movie has to be the comic relief character, Seth. He's gonna be working with Eve Kim throughout the movie, and everything that comes out of this dipshit's mouth is like Zoink Scoob! He's just obnoxious. His jokes never land. They're always attempted though, and I just couldn't wait for him to be off of the screen. As far as the visuals are concerned, I suppose I'm more of a blue guy because I loved how Legacy looked, okay? It's the Marcy's playground of films. It's blue. Tron Ares goes full early Taylor Swift. The whole thing's red. I mean, they dabble a little bit with the NCOM blue stuff, but for the most part, we're following Dillinger's grid, and it's a whole lot of red all the time. And we carry those light cycles and some of those other mechanics into the real world. While they did keep the Tron Legacy movements of the light cycles, I never found any of the real world stuff to be all that interesting. Mainly, again, because we're following Eve, and she just kind of sucks. Not because she's unlikable, she's just not interesting. Of course, everything I'm saying right now is incredibly subjective, so let's just get to some facts, all right? I call them Adam Fun Facts here on the channel. Tron Ares clocks in at about 2 hours. It's PG-13, and I don't even know why it's PG-13. Guys turn into voxels, I suppose, when they're slashed apart, but there's not really any blood, there's action, but again, it's pretty tame in comparison. They probably peppered in some dams and some shits, and I just forgot. That's probably why we have a PG-13 on this one. From a pacing standpoint, Tron Ares moves fast enough. I did find myself getting very bored, though, at that 2-hour runtime. Hour and a half, 90-minute this thing. Get me in and out of here, for crying out loud. It's too long for the basic story that's being told. And the fact that this movie cops out so hard by not continuing the story of Tron Legacy really annoyed the shit out of me, because I liked those characters. I wanted to see where that went. Instead, again, just alluded to some of the stuff. Unfortunately, I left watching Tron Ares going, Tron, who carries? Certainly not me anymore. It did nothing to really elevate the material, because when everything is worse than the predecessor, what's even the point? Number 3. Look out, dog that played Air Bud and Dwayne Johnson in his new movie where he's trying to act for once. We have a genuine contender for Best Actor this year, and that's the Nova Scotia duck trolling retriever named Indy. He's gonna find himself in a pickle as he and his owner move into a haunted house. And the twist about Good Boy, the whole film is done through the perspective of the beloved dog. Well, I saw the movie, and now I want to talk to you about it in a spoiler-free review. Let's begin. Okay, what we have here is an R-rated, hour and 12-minute film. You heard me. An hour and 12 minutes. And apparently it was shot over the course of 3 years using the director's own dog, Indy, as he's also known as in the film. It's interesting that this movie is only an hour and 12 minutes. I found that out after the fact. While I watched it, it definitely felt 90 minutes. And it's probably because this is a gimmicky type of movie. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I happen to like a good gimmick, as long as it's executed well. Thankfully, Good Boy is executed pretty well. But as the movie was unfolding, I kept thinking to myself, man, this is the type of movie you put in a film reel. This is what you use to pitch the real movie, the real story you want to tell. Good Boy seems like the perfect idea for a good 30-minute film that you pitch to people and you go, all right, look at the skills I have, which you can definitely see. Good Boy is lit incredibly well. It's a beautiful looking movie. The atmosphere is powerful. I really dug the environments, the sound design, the rain pouring down on our dog protagonist, the fog in the woods covering up potential threats nearby. Good Boy's all about the atmosphere because the story is paper thin. Todd inherits a house in the woods. He sells his own place. He and his dog Indy move in, really try to make this house a home. And he and Indy are pretty much the only characters you see in the film, outside of an occasional annoying phone call or text from her sister and the neighborhood hunter they'll bump into once in a while. So the majority of the film is gonna rest on our furry friend, and I have to say, he is great to look at on camera. He's a beautiful dog. The acting's on point. You know, as much facial expressions as you can get out of a dog, he certainly does it. It's just, when you're looking at an animal as opposed to a human, you're missing a lot of the characteristics and a lot of things you can relate to in a performance. So it's just mostly him nervously looking at corners of walls, at shadows, possibly figures showing up. The reason the film puts the focus on the dog is because he has the ability to see what others can't. He's got the Haley Joel Osment in him. He sees dead people, or dead things, or ghosts, or something. I don't want to give it away, but something mysterious is looming just beyond the shadows. And unbeknownst to his owner, Todd, they're not here to be friends. The thing that I found a little bit odd is they don't do a whole lot with the whole dog angle. Like, you replace Indy with a hot chick like you get in most horror movies, not a lot of the story needs to change. The camera would just be taken up a few feet. I was kind of hoping at one point Indy would have to wear one of those doggy cones, and so it would really narrow his perspective, and so you could see how it could be kind of creepy, where he's looking around at the ceiling and he's seeing shadows bounce off. Or maybe there's a fetch scene with the owner. He tosses the ball and the dog runs into the woods, and what he sees is like a severed arm or something. But no, none of that stuff. It's really just the dog going from room to room, getting a little creeped out. There's reflections of things in the background. Again, the atmosphere is really good. I just feel like the gimmick wasn't fully realized. Instead, the director perplexingly decides to go a different direction with the gimmick itself, which is to hide the faces of everyone the dog comes into contact. The owner, Todd, is constantly in the shadows, and I genuinely don't know why or how this helps the story. And there's always excuses to obscure him. Think about a comedy show where you find out one of the actresses is like 8 months pregnant, so they constantly have her wearing parkas, or she's walking around with like a globe of the earth. That's what's happening here, except for with faces. Example, it's raining outside, which causes the owner to wear a rain jacket, hood up, causing a shadow, don't see the face. Or it's always dark in the house, and the lighting is just hitting him in a way where you only see underneath the chin. When they come into contact with the hunter, he is fully decked out in camo, including the zipper over the face. I, for the life of me, can't understand why, and I found it really distracting. The gimmick was there with the dog. We didn't need to add one on top of it. Now, you might be wondering, well, is the movie scary? It's gonna, scares are in the eye of the beholder, I think. I did not find it scary. Atmosphere is one thing, but it wasn't genuinely like creepy. I just thought it sounded and looked really pretty. You have 2 or 3 jump scares in the movie. I found one of them to be effective. The other 2, I was like, really? The biggest scare of the night, ironically, was from my own doing. I was focused on the film. I shifted a little bit. My arm must have grazed the side of the chair that has the controls for the recline on the seats. So I was watching, and then out of nowhere, I kind of started to levitate back. I'm like, oh my God, I'm being possessed. What's happening right now? It was like half a second. Blink and you miss it, sort of a scare, but that one got me. Can't really give the credit to the film though for that. So, and yeah, it's kind of a one-trick puppy. I don't have much else to say about the film. I was excited for Good Boy. I thought the premise seemed intriguing, kind of clever. Unfortunately, this is a situation where the doggy dish is only half full. I wanted a full meal. I did not get it. I do think it's at least entertaining enough for a one-time watch. I am positive on it. I think it's worth a watch eventually, maybe when it comes home to streaming. Unless you have a movie pass, though, it's tough for me to say, yeah, go pony up $11, $12, $15, whatever it is at your theater these days. Just not enough there. Number 2, everybody's favorite child abducting murder from Fortnite is back in Black Phone 2, Continental Drift. Out of all the horror films in all the world, Black Phone was one of them that I did not think needed a sequel in the slightest, but it made money, so a sequel away. But I went into the film with an open heart, an open mind, and open arms. And I came out on the other side a little bit surprised with the results. I want to tell you about Black Phone 2 in a spoiler-free review. We hit fast forward 3 years into the future. And we are back with Finney and his sister Gwen. Still in Colorado, Finn has really made a name for himself over the last couple years, kind of becoming a total badass. A major alpha male. He smokes cigarettes, he gets in fights, he's basically John McClane now. His poor sister Gwen, not so cool, but she has the shining on her friends. She still sees events before they happen, and she's even upgraded the skill set a little bit, allowing her to do a little bit more in her dreams than previously known. And Gwen is going to get a much larger character arc in this one. In the previous outing, she acted more as Finney's guy in the chair sort of a character, like hacking away with the Bluetooth headset on, except for the hacking is like dream walking and seeing foreshadows. Here, though, we're spending a lot of time with her. We get to know more about the lore of our villain, the Grabber. And this film's really going to double down on the supernatural events. If you saw the first film, you know the Grabber did not survive at the end. Well, how did they bring him back? Well, they Nightmare on Elm Street his ass. They Freddy Krueger this bitch. The story's also going to switch up the setting. While it is still in Colorado, this time we're going camping, folks. Out at Alpine Lake. It's kind of your standard retreat, roast marshmallows, build forts, get abducted by the Grabber in the middle of the night, hacked up and thrown into the lake. You know, your typical camp-out adventure. Yeah, it turns out Alpine Lake has a history, and we're going to learn all about it through a bunch of flashbacks, a bunch of dream-walking sequences, and these are going to be presented with a bunch of film grain and artifacting and noise, letting you know when you're in a dream, when you're in a flashback, and when you're in full-blown reality. And they do this effect a lot, to the point where I was like, I don't know if I want to keep looking at grain for the majority of the film, but small hang-ups aside, I found this movie worked really well. I did not expect much going in. I was pleasantly surprised with the final product. I wouldn't say it's a scary film. There was really only one moment in the movie, and it's your kind of classic monster under the bed situation where she's looking around her room and she sees a dark shadow underneath one of the beds. And you know, that there's a little bit of tension there, like what's going to happen, what's going to pop out, or is something going to be behind her, or fall out of the ceiling, or you just don't know. Unless you watch the trailer, then you actually do know. Regardless, it's not really a scary movie. It's just more about the thrills and the cool lore that they're starting to build up in this franchise, and it worked damn well. The environments, the setting is really pretty to look at. It's eerie. I love the tone that the movie goes for. It's got that vintage feel, taking place once again in the 80s. Actually, I misspoke. The first one takes place in the late 70s. Regardless, the setting works very well. The clothing's on point. The only minor little issue I had was some of the teen speak that these kids do. Granted, I was newly born in 1982, so I suppose people talk the way these kids do early on in the film, but it never comes off as natural when Gwen is saying something like, "Radical, see you later," mainly because the actress, who does a fantastic job in this movie, is playing a character that's very quiet, very disturbed because the images she's seen. So when she says something like far out or tubular or, you know, she doesn't say that stuff, but things like that, I'm just going, that's not coming off natural at all, and she's not delivering it in a way that's giving it much gusto. Now, I do remember watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon show as a child, and the four turtles would say things like radical and cowabunga, dude, and I never once in my life said cowabunga out loud with my friends. I feel like these were the types of catchphrases that were only used in TV shows to like come up with catchphrases for people to use, but no one actually used them. I might be wrong. It's anecdotal, I suppose. Regardless, that was the only real, like, minor hang-up I had. That and the runtime, which is something that's boring to talk about, especially on my channel, because I bring it up more often than not. But I do think a good, tight, focused film goes a long ways. And at an almost 2-hour runtime for Black Phone 2, it feels 15 minutes longer than it needs to be. Because this doesn't have some deep, profound storyline going on. I mean, the mystery isn't really that much of a mystery like it was in the first one, since you kind of know the playbook and how it works. You know, with our leads being able to communicate in a small capacity with the dead via the black phone. And there were definitely things that could have been shaved off, and I wouldn't have lost any sleep over it. As for the grabber himself, Ethan Hawke is once again reprising the role. I don't find him to be a scary character. He's fine. He's good. I just don't put him on the same level as a Freddy Krueger or a Jason Voorhees or a Michael Myers. He's just the grabber. He gets the job done, I suppose. But yeah, nothing in here was going, oh man, this is a very haunting performance. He's fine. He does the trick. Just nothing much more than that. There are some new supporting characters. They range from perfectly fine to I'll remember you after this movie's over. No one's really leaving a mark, but no one's insulting either. They're all solid characters to just round out the crew. This is a Blumhouse picture, so you just never know if it's going to be an R-rated version or one of those kids bop, now that's what I call horror films. This is rated R. There is some blood, tiny bit of gore, I suppose, and hacking of hatchets. But really, there's just not a ton here as far as the violence is concerned and the shock factor. You're going into this one pretty safe, especially compared to some of the more jaw-dropping stuff we've had earlier this year. I started out by saying Black Phone didn't need a sequel. Most movies don't. But this one, more than any, I was like, what are you going to do with this? After watching this film, I'm pretty happy it exists because it is a cool route that they went. It's interesting. They do bring a lot of ideas back from the first and build them out more. I think if you went into this one without seeing the first movie, you're doing yourself a disservice, especially with our two lead characters. The siblings really do have a dynamic with each other. They have history there, and that builds into the second film. We also have the father who's back, and they flesh him out a bit more too, which I enjoyed. Yeah, I really have no issues with the movie. It is a slower affair. Don't expect like a bunch of crazy shit to happen all the time. It really does focus on characters. It does focus on some of the trauma they had from the first film. I think it handles it all very well. And the great news about this movie is it can easily be the end of the Black Phone series, but I also wouldn't be too upset if they continued on, which I'm sure they're going to continue on as it makes a bunch of money. Number 1. I went to one of those AMC mystery movie things the other night, and it's always a very tense, kind of scary situation. You just really don't know what you're going to get at the end of the day. Fortunately, it was a film called Roofman, a film that from the trailers looked to have some potential at the very least, and today, after seeing it, I'm here to tell you whether or not it's worth your time. Let's begin. Roofman is rated R for some salty language and a little bit of adult contact. Sorry ladies, Magic Mike isn't showing the old magic stick this time around. What our boy Channing Tatum is going to provide, though, Channing Tatum short for Channing Tatum, is some good-ass acting here. I was very impressed with him here, and his chemistry with Kirsten Dunst is very much on point. Although it's very hard to go wrong with Kirsten Dunst, she's just a national treasure. I'm going to avoid any sort of spoilery content here, just give you the lay of the land, which you can expect. The movie is over 2 hours long, just a tidge over 2 hours. You feel it a little bit, but also the movie's damn good. So I also wasn't really perturbed that I was spending more time with these characters, because they're all very lovely people. Even our main protagonist, who's kind of an antagonist all the same. Channing Tatum plays Jeffrey Manchester. This is a real person, and this whole movie is based on true events. Now, I always like to put the caveat out there, I don't know the whole history of what's going on in this film, so I can't speak to how legit this is to the real world event that took place with this character, and it's not beneath Hollywood scripts to indulge a little bit on the original story. It's the whole fisherman premise, right? The fish is this big, but when he tells the tale, it's more like this big. I'm perfectly fine with that because I'm treating this as entertainment, not so much as a history lesson. And from that aspect, I was very entertained. The film is titled Roofman because Jeffrey is titled Roofman based on a string of crimes he does right when the film fires up. He breaks into a string of restaurants through the rooftop like a reverse Santa Claus, not giving presents, but instead taking shit for himself. He gets caught right away on his daughter's birthday of all days, and he's sent to the Slammer, where he figures out a way to break out and holds himself up in a Toys R Us, as one does. And you can see all of this play out in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything away. The bulk of the story revolves around him hiding out from the cops in this Toys R Us, how he's surviving, and some of the friendships he's gonna forge along the way. The film provides some good drama, pulls at the heartstrings, has a nice little love story mixed in. I'm also a sucker for not only movies based on true stories, but also of watching an individual who's incredibly gifted at one aspect. He calls it a superpower in the film, and Jeffrey's superpower is observation. He'll tell you how many houses are on a block, how many of those houses have working chimneys, and the best way to break into said houses. This sort of skill set is very valuable in a lot of good working jobs, but Jeffrey makes a lot of bad choices in his life and instead uses them for evil. What makes Tatum's character so interesting, though, is the fact that Jeffrey, at least in movie form, is presented as this very nice, wholesome, good guy doing bad things. This allows the audience to give the criminal some sympathy, gives him some relatability, showcases how far people are willing to go when they meet tough times. And I had a freaking great time with this movie. It's not setting the world ablaze or anything, but it's just so well made, so well executed. And again, the performances by Channing Tatum, by Kirsten Dunst, by Ben Mendelsohn randomly showing up as a church singer. I like that he's almost in his own type of movie. He feels like a character you would see in a Christopher Guest film, you know, just soothingly singing the word of God whenever we're back in church with these people. Hilarious stuff. We also have Peter Dinklage as the manager of Toys R Us, playing to his strengths. Dinklage is at his best when he's an asshole, he's pompous, doesn't really care about other people's feelings, and that's exactly who this character is. It's perfect. Since Roofman takes place in, I believe, early 2000s, it does have a little bit of a 90s, 2000s aesthetic, a little bit of a vintagey feel with the cinematography, which is funny because I recently watched The Smashing Machine with Dwayne Johnson, and that movie also takes place late 90s, early 2000s, but they filmed that one like it was more in line with the 70s. It was really bizarre, the cinematography on that. This works much better. It makes more sense with the setting. And of course, you're going to get a lot of that early 2000s nostalgia thrown in. I spotted a Blockbuster video in the background at one point. You have Spice Girls posters. There's all sorts of stuff that bring you back. Especially with the Toys R Us being the primary setting, you're going to see all sorts of things that are going to give you flashbacks, possibly PTSD, especially a Tickle Me Elmo doll. That was my 9/11 when that thing came out. So the overall takeaway from this review is Roofman is a damn good movie. I would definitely check it out in theaters if you can. There's nothing in this film that screams, I need to be seen on the largest, loudest screen possible. But I do think it's a movie absolutely worth supporting, especially in a sea of complete dreck that hits screens every single week. Roofman, one of the good ones. All right, there you have it. My thoughts on Roofman, probably in my top 10 this year. I'd have to go back and look, but it seems like a pretty likely contender, maybe even top 5 if I'm being extra saucy. All right, let me know if you saw this last night at that little early showing, or if you're now more interested to check it out. Again, trailers I thought looked pretty good. Nothing that was screaming, I gotta go watch the film, but I'm very happy that I did. Well, there you have it, my ranking for October movies. I told you it was a rough one. Hopefully this month provides us with something better. I mean, we have a Predator film on the horizon, we have a new movie by Edgar Wright, The Running Man, and we have the sequel to the hit musical Wicked. Promising stuff here. All right, let me know what you thought about my ranking and how many of these movies, if you watched, if any of them. Give me your own ranking down below. Please think of subbing to the show, Adam Does Movies, on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. I have a brand new second channel I started, Adam Does Films, where I'm putting my lack of money where my mouth is and making free short films over there. Subscribe to that too, please. And hopefully, I see you next time. Take care.